Hi, Dr. Weiner. I had a sleeve in 2016, and because of complications, I had a bypass on the 29th of November 2019. I also had a stricture and a twisted bowel, and I'm suffering from terrible constipation. My highest weight was 140 kilos. My current weight is 77 kilos. I have big problems with constipation and not going to the toilet. Tonight I used a suppository that didn't even work. Is that normal for someone like me, or is there a problem?
So there's a lot to talk about with this case. First of all, this person has had 3 bariatric related surgeries. And that's a lot. We don't see that very often, but these are all things that can happen. The first thing is she had a sleeve gastrectomy. That's surgery number 1. My guess is she had substantial heartburn after this surgery and needed to have it revised to a gastric bypass. And we'll see that somewhere between 3 to 5% of the time. Anyone who's choosing to have a sleeve gastrectomy needs to know that they have a chance, a 1 in 20, 1 in 30 chance, somewhere in that range, of needing to have this revised to a gastric bypass to treat unrelenting heartburn. And there is some difference in this rate from surgeon to surgeon. And we're not exactly sure why, but I think when you're shopping for a surgeon, particularly if you're going to have a sleeve, really asking them about patients' reflux, talking to other patients that have had surgery, and determining whether whether this surgeon does have a high rate of reflux after surgery is something that's, I think, worth looking into. So this person had this, unfortunate event, needed to have it revised to a gastric bypass. Then they went on to have something called a stricture, which is where the connection between the stomach and the small intestine narrows down and has to be stretched out with an endoscopy. Generally not that big of a problem. They can be pretty stubborn, but for the most part, 1, maybe 2, in rare circumstance, endoscopies are necessary. They stretch everything out, open it up, and we usually see this about 4 to 6 weeks out from surgery. And then after that, you kind of go on and have a normal life, and actually having a stricture does increase your weight loss after surgery. So while that's unfortunate, and we do try to reduce it, and the rate of that is somewhere around 3 or 4% as well, that's not a terrible complication if you have to go through it, to the point where sometimes I've seen patients with it and they'll be like, oh yeah, I did have that problem, I forgot about that, where they don't even remember that they had this issue after surgery because the rest of their postoperative course was actually pretty uneventful. And then finally, this person had a twisted intestine, which I'm guessing is an internal hernia. And I do go over on my website, drweiner.com, drweiner.com. I do go over each of these complications in detail and kind of explain them through more thoroughly. But what happened is, through 2 of the layers of fat that are created during a gastric bypass, their intestine got stuck and twisted in it, and it had to be untwisted by a surgeon. And a lot of times, I'd say 95+% of the time, this experience really mimics something like appendicitis, the acute onset of abdominal pain, a laparoscopic surgery, a 1 or 2 day recovery, within a week or so, kind of back to business. And this can be more serious and severe. And this is why it's so important that if you do have abdominal pain and you've had a gastric bypass surgery, that you see a bariatric surgeon, someone who does perform these procedures. I can fix these things in 20 or 30 minutes laparoscopically, and I can generally spot it from a few lines of conversation on the phone. So this is something that I've seen many times before. I know to look out for, and I know the most efficient way to fix them surgically. If you go to someone with less bariatric surgery experience, you could end up with a big incision, a delay in diagnosis, potentially need to have intestine resected, and things like that. And so that's a really important component of having a gastric bypass, is maintaining a relationship with a surgeon who knows these surgeries and can help you if any problems occur down the line. Again, somewhere in the 3 to 4% range. So this unfortunate patient has had 3 complications that occur in the kind of low single-digit percentage range, which is unfortunate, but still I think it's very possible for someone who goes through all of these things to then go on and live and have a very normal postoperative life with normal digestive experiences. And her complaints of constipation, in my mind, may not be related to her bariatric surgery. I think it's worth exploring and making sure that this isn't a recurrent twist in the intestine that is potentially causing the constipation. But most likely, constipation is caused by decreased fluid intake, decreased fiber intake, or is just generally a chronic condition related to the way their colon functions. And some people's colon don't evacuate as efficiently as others, and they have more problems with constipation. These surgeries are on the first part of the intestinal tract, the stomach and the first part of the small intestine. Constipation is typically caused by a problem with the colon. And we don't operate on the colon, we don't change the colon around, we don't interfere with the nerves that go to the colon. And so most likely this constipation is unrelated to their bariatric surgery. I think it's worth discussing with your bariatric surgeon, especially with kind of a complicated postoperative experience, but most likely this is going to end up being unrelated to bariatric surgery and just something that that some people experience, and it needs to be addressed either with laxatives or with diet change.